Hello and welcome back to another Star Wars Legion video. Today I'm going to be going over the battle plans deck for the main objective part. We're just going to be running through the cards as well as kind of what type of armies I would play with them. The armies are going to be based on faction and based on account or activation numbers. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive right on in. I will say this is just my opinion. I am still just a casual player, so take that into account when thinking about these objectives. What I like to do is I like making my army first and then think about the objectives, and not necessarily go into what my armies, what objectives I want to be playing before I make the army, if that makes sense. I always make the army first and then look at the main objectives. But this is generally my idea of what I do when I do make those main objectives. Starting off with close the pocket. For a setup, you're going to place the 3 stockpiles in the middle, and then you're going to be, your deployment zones are going to be on the opposite sides of each other in the corners. For scoring on this objective, you score at the end of the second round. During each end phase, you're going to score 2 victory points if you secure the center stockpile, which is this one here in the middle, and then score 1 BP for each non-center stockpile that you secure. Just as a reminder, securing means that you have more enemy units there than your opponent, or more allied units there than your opponent does have enemy units, leaders. Just for clarification there. So you have to have more of your leaders within half range of the POI than your enemy does in order to secure that objective. Generally, what I like running for this main objective is I think lower activations can do well, especially if you have very strong centerpieces like Anakin and the Gar, or Ahsoka squad and the Gar, or even in the Empire you have like Vader. This is a great one for low activations. I generally pile up on one side and then go in from one side, just in case my opponent decided to split early on. And when I have low activations, I can always pass my first turn, meaning they'll have to commit a unit to the board unless they have the green advantage card that gave them a pass, and then they'll pass. But yeah, them committing to a side, and then I will generally pile up on one side and then go from one side to the other. And I think that is just the best way to play, because splitting up your army can be rather bad. Like, you can try to go for this point, the third point, but I never see any point, especially when I'm playing it with my low activation armies, to go to that third point, because if I secure this point and the middle point, I'm already scoring enough victory points to win, as well as depending on the secondary, it can really shift up that playstyle, like if I have to go for the third point. And in tournament play, that might not be viable. I don't really know how tournament play works, but that is just my opinion as a casual. Going from one side to the other really works well with my low activation armies, so I really like that. The factions that I think excel more at this one are Gar and the Empire, just because their lower activations are stronger than they have stronger units than the Rebels and CIS or Separatists. Now, I believe right now the Separatists are really strong, so I'd still watch out for them. And there's always a phrase that it doesn't matter how good your army is if you're a bad player, because good players will win with bad armies. That's been said so much in the wargaming community, so just keep that in mind, that just because you play this main objective like perfectly, or if you play it perfectly, you should win. But just because you think you can win this with your low activation, or a bad army or a good army or whatever, so take that in mind. Just a little rambling there. But yeah, that's close the pocket. It's pretty easy of an objective. Next off is bunker assault. You're going to place 4 POIs for this one, as shown. You basically have your 2 POIs and their 2 POIs for bunkers. Scoring of this is starting the second round. During each end phase, players score 1 victory point for each bunker they secure. Additionally, players score 3 victory points for each enemy bunker that was destroyed during that end phase. The special rules for this is that starting at the second round, each player places 1 wound token on an enemy bunker they secure, starting with the blue player. Then for each enemy bunker a player secures, if at least one of the contesting units is a commander, operative, or special forces unit, they place an additional wound token on that bunker. Then each bunker that has 3 or more wound tokens on it is destroyed and removed from the battlefield. I will also run this for low activation armies sometimes. However, I will say that the Separatists and Rebels are very good, in my opinion, at this objective because of the large numbers they can overwhelm, and oftentimes they'll have more of those special forces units than the Gar Empire will have, in my opinion. So yeah, just watch out for that. I think any faction can be good at this. Higher activation armies can do really well at this as well. So it's a toss-up for me on who's winning this, and who has the better strategy that game overall to win this. And higher activations can secure all the bunkers, so it's a little bit more in their favor, I think, overall. But yeah, that is my general opinion on Bunker Assault. I played this one a lot, and sometimes the lower activation army wins, like at 8 activations versus a 12 activation army, but then sometimes that 12 activations just overwhelms. So yeah, really hard to say. Next up is Breakthrough. This one is a very interesting one, I think, and we'll get into that in just a second. But for setup, you're placing 4 POIs as shown on the map there. Your scoring is based on, always at the end of the second round is what scoring is. And players score 1 VP for each checkpoint within allied territory that is not contested by an enemy unit. So if there are no enemy units by the ones that are in your territory, you score a VP. And you score 2 VPs for each checkpoint in enemy territory you secure. So, or they, like, if your enemy secures yours. This one can be, it's one of the weirder ones. I generally will take a closer army, which range 2 is kind of the sweet spot for armies right now, which is why arcs are so good, why sleeper cells so good, because they're just excel at that close range. And this map is definitely for those type of armies. If I had to guess that if people play tournaments and they played those armies, this would probably be the main objective, I think, would be in everyone's deck. But I don't really know, because like I said, haven't gone to tournaments. Only listen to people about them and do some research. But yeah, for my games, I definitely only take it for melee focused armies or close range focused armies. Like, I would never take it with the army I just ran with the ARFs, but maybe you could and it still do really well. I think this is very close range combatant, and you could catch your enemy off guard if you take this and somehow got it through the main objective, flipping there. But yeah, high activations I think do better at this one as well. That is just because they're able to overwhelm faster the enemy bases, and since you're so close, you can move over there pretty fast while still securing their own bases. So yeah. Next up is intercept signals. This is probably my favorite main objective. I'll get into that in just a second. You're going to place 4 comms towers, or POIs, as shown on the intercept signals map there. You're starting with blue player. Each player then chooses 3 allied units. Then each player chooses 2 of the enemy units that their opponent chose. Starting with blue player, each of the chosen enemy units gains an intel token. Scoring, starting in the second round during the end phase, players score 1 VP for each comms tower not within allied territory that meets one or more of the following conditions. That comms tower is contested by an allied unit with an intel token, and that comms tower is secured by that player, or that comms tower is secured by that player. It has special rules. At the end of each end phase, if a player is securing a comms tower, up to 2 allied units contesting that comms tower may each gain an intel token. Each player can have a maximum of 2 units with intel tokens at any given time. This is probably my favorite main objective because it is a little bit weird. It's I think it suits my playstyle a lot. With high mobility units, especially with that last game I played on this map. My opponent actually took this in their deck, and we played it from their deck instead of my deck. And my army just exceeded at it. The ARFs did really well, and the Barks did really well, but you can see that in the update video. But this is the best main objective, in my opinion, for lower activation armies. And the reason I say that is because of how the comms towers work. Since you score a point for each comms tower that is contested by an allied unit with an intel token. I've won this as both Empire and Gar recently on this map. The Empire game, I took Darth Vader as a commander. I had Fifth Brother and Callus. And Callus and Fifth Brother and Darth Vader were my 3 that I chose from my allied units. And then Darth Vader ended up with one of the tokens, intel tokens, and Callus ended up with the other one because my opponent thought that he could take down Callus really fast, and that Darth Vader was too slow, so he wouldn't be able to get there in time, or once he got there he would already whatever. But Darth Vader took one side of the board while Callus and Fifth Brother just scored points on the other, and they didn't really secure that side very well, but it just allowed me to score points over and over again while he was just scrambling around the board. And because you only have to contest with an allied unit with the intel token, the reason I say lower activations excel at this is because, like I said earlier, lower activations tend to have bigger centerpieces or just stronger individual units. So for the Gar army that I just took, Anakin, Ahsoka, and one of my Barks were my 3 options for the intel token. I gave it to the Barks because they're fast, and I might have been able to go and contest the enemy POI with them. In the game it didn't happen, but that is why I chose them, in order to maybe get to that back point and score an additional victory point while securing one of the middle victory points and just contesting with another intel token on the other. And those intel tokens are the real key to this main objective. Don't be shrugging on that whenever you're playing this. Don't be scared to give it to your really powerful units so that they can hold down that middle ground. Anakin's a huge threat with an intel token, so if you're having to choose your opponent, never give it to Anakin. He's just a giant threat. You don't want it. Or Vader, for that matter. But lower activations, I think, excel at this. Not saying that higher activations can't win this, because I believe any activation size army can win any of these main objectives. I'm just saying which ones I believe are better at that main objective. For this main objective, Gar and Empire, obviously my top 2 choices for this. That being said, I think the CIS Separatists can do really well. I think the Rebels are probably the weakest faction in this intercepts the signals, but that's just with, again, my play style and how I played the game. Moving on to probably my 2 least favorite main objectives: recover the research. You're going to place 6 POIs as shown on the map there. Starting in the second round during the end phase, players score 1 victory point if allied units contest 2 labs, 2 victory points if allied units contest 3 labs, 3 victory points if allied units contest 4 or more labs. Needless to say, higher activations excel at this. There's more POIs to contest. They can spread themselves a little bit thinner across the board, allowing to get up to those 4 POIs. And it's just harder for those lower activations to do it. The Separatists really excel at this one, and they're probably my top pick for Recover the Research, just because of their order control and everything else. They have bigger core units, so their core units will stay alive longer. Things like that go into that reasoning there. The Rebels are a close second, though. But yeah, not too much to say about this one. I think it's pretty boring. It's just one of my least favorite main objectives. Moving on to shifting priorities. This is another weird one that it's still one of my least favorite main objectives, but it is weird, and I kind of like it for that. You're going to place 5 priority target POIs as shown on the map. Starting the second round during the end phase, players score 1 victory point for each priority target they secure. The word secure there is very important, since if I didn't make it clear earlier, contesting is just your unit leader within half of that POI. So you don't have to secure the base, you just have to contest it. The special rules for this, that starting in the second round, at the end of each end phase, players take turns placing each priority target secured by their opponent within half of its current position. Starting with the blue player, each priority target may be placed this way only once per round. So this is just moving POIs. I've played this a couple times, and I've got to say, the POIs moving doesn't really help all that much. I haven't played a game where it's actually mattered too much. Higher activations are really good at this one, because again, it's securing higher base numbers, or POIs numbers there. So they just are better at securing more POIs than lower activations. I think the person who probably excels, or the faction that excels the most at this, is actually going to be the Rebels. I just think they are better at securing bases than the Separatists. But yeah, overall there. That's just a general opinion about all of the main objectives that are currently in the game. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like or a comment. If you have any questions, or if you think my opinion's wrong, feel free to leave a comment too. Good for any feedback, as long as it's constructive. Don't just be like, you're dumb, I guess. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.